Hello, everybody. How the heck are you doing this fine day? Steve Dotto here. We are so thrilled that you are going to be joining us. I have Kathy and April with me today. How are you guys doing?
Great, good. Discovered we're both in Connecticut.
Yes.
It's everybody's in Connecticut.
So my favorite day of the week, Webinar Wednesday.
Is Webinar Wednesday your favorite day of the week, April?
It is one of my favorite days. Yeah. I mean, this is like very structured, right? It's so we've been doing this for like 2.5 years. We meet the same time every Wednesday.
I think with the lockdown, if it wasn't for I wouldn't know what day it is.
Could be Sunday for all we know, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It is my favorite day because we have so many people in our community that come back and see us every week. So it really is my favorite
it's great
day.
to visit old friends. And speaking of old friends, they are just saying hello like crazy. There are so many people in the room that I can't possibly say hi to everybody. I see Peggy G there. I see a few regulars going by. Welcome everybody to this week's Webinar Wednesday. We got a big turnout today because the topic is going to be freaking awesome. Kathy is an expert on teaching people about archiving their photos. We're going to be talking about that. And this is probably the first of several visits we'll have from Kathy over the next little while, because little did I know there's way more to saving your photos than just backing them up in Google Drive.
Yes, that's right. We have to work with you on that a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you can give me a lot of feedback. So let me fill everybody in on what we're going to be doing today and what the plan is as we get people on. With this many people, it's going to take a few seconds before everybody's in the room and settled. Every week here we do Webinar Wednesday. It is a free tutorial that we deliver to you from Dottotech, and we are happy to have you on board. If you do have technical issues, there's going to be a lot of people on today. If their internet lets us down for any reason, which it's been known to do occasionally, there'll be a full replay sent out tomorrow, along with all of the links, including Kathy's got some great little tutorial that she's sharing with us. All of those links will be shared with you in that email tomorrow. So keep your eye open for that if you have to leave, or if you want to share it with a friend. If there's something here that you really liked and you realize that this is good for somebody else, we're happy to allow you to share this with them as well. Now, the replay itself will be available for 48 hours after 96 hours from now. It's available. And then after that, we archive these replays and make them available to our patrons, who I'm going to do a big shout out to right now. Dottotech is a community-funded channel. We are supported through the generosity of our patrons, our supporters, through the crowdfunding site Patreon. And you can find out more at patreon.com/Dottotech. But there's nearly 800 people who say, we like what you're doing, Steve and April, and we want to support you, and we want you to continue delivering this content. And they step up and they support us financially. So to them, all of you, we say a great big thank you. It means the world to us, and we are here because of you. But they don't just give us money, they get perks as well. And one of the biggest perks is we take each one of these weekly tutorial webinars and we archive it. This is number 133, is it, April? I think it's 133 or 133.
It is 133. Yep.
133. So this, along with 133 other tutorial webinars, is one of the perks, as well as a reduced price for all of our courses. And we include a free course now, which is called Don't Retire, Rewire, for the baby boomers amongst us, which I know there's a lot online today that want to look at a different option rather than classic retirement, want to reinvent themselves. And so we've got a course on that called Don't Retire, Rewire, which is included with your Patreon support, with our $10 supporters on Patreon. So to all of the patrons, thank you so much. You guys are just awesome. And I think if things go well today, if Kathy doesn't screw up, we'll end up
no pressure.
800. We should end the week at over 800 subscribers, which is
she's gonna rock the house.
I never imagined we would get there. It's just off the charts. So a great big thank you to each and every one of you. So I got to ask a question. Should I do the poll right now? I've got a poll ready to go. Just a minute. I want to know.
You're so excited because you remembered to do one ahead of time this week.
I know. I'm like uber organized. So I'm going to ask you guys a question about digital photos, because today we're going to be concentrating not on digital photos, but sorry, I got a question about your photos. We're not going to be concentrating so much today on digital photos, but we're going to concentrate on, do you call them analog photos? What do you call them?
I say printed, but analog is what
printed. Okay.
Those old-fashioned thing that you held in your hand.
In your life right now, what are you more concerned about? Your digital photos, your paper-based photos, or both? Because it's just a cluster mess between them both. And so here we go. So this is cool. Can you see the poll? I can see the poll.
I see it.
Reacting as we do it.
I'm not surprised by that.
Choose it. Oh yeah. Once you choose one, you get to see the overall results as it goes. This is cool. Wow. Everybody's answering. We've got 518 people in the room. We've got 360 answers. And so far, 29% are concerned with digital, 13% with paper and file-based photos, and 57% on both. That's
yeah,
good.
It's both. Yeah.
Because you deal with both.
Yeah, we do.
You deal with both digital.
I just have to break it down
analog.
into two different. Yeah, we do. I mean,
because there's different techniques that we're going to be.
Correct.
So consider this part one
right.
of our ongoing of maybe a 2 or possibly 3-part series, depending on dealing with your digital photos that we're going to do over the next little while. Now, we've tackled this subject in the past. Of course, I've done lots of videos on using Google Photos, which for the longest time was my answer for everybody. Just use Google Photos. But that's not a good enough answer, is it, Kathy?
No, it's just a mess. It's just like dump it up in the, Yeah.
Okay, so let's do this. Just tell us a little bit about your background, where you come from, and then we will run into the video. So Kathy's pre-recorded a training. While it's running, we will be answering your questions in chat, as is per our normal here on Webinar Wednesday. But what got you started in doing the digital photo archiving thing?
It's when I worked, I used to help people make scrapbook photo albums, which was, when we used to run to the 1-hour photo labs and print our photos and put them in an album. And then in like 2009, I called it my incredibly shrinking paycheck, as I noticed people were no longer printing photos, which was, and I was making money on selling a tangible product. But I was teaching adult ed classes, and people would coming to me with their little baggies of memory cards, and they'd say, how do I get my photos, onto my computer? How do I email a photo? This is before the iPhone, which, believe it or not. And so I realized people were hiring me to go to their homes, and I was setting them up. And I started, in a way, kind of what you've done, but I just focused specifically on photos and memories. And I thought of myself as like the Geekette Squad, with technology was my first concept.
People had a baggie full of memory cards.
Oh, yeah.
So they were using the memory cards like they were film?
Absolutely. I was amazed. I was like, oh my God, that's a really expensive roll of film. And they didn't want to, they would never delete anything. Now that's changed a little bit, but those were the early stages. But I bet you can do a little poll and ask people how many have saved all their memory cards. And I bet you'll find quite a few.
I wonder.
Psychologically, it's a real shift to understand the difference between a printed photo and it's a real, and we call things photos. And now on our phone, we call, our screenshot a photo, when really what's a photo? And I'll talk about that in a minute. So that's what's really tripped up, I think, the consumer. And people like Google and Apple and everything, they were busy creating, they weren't interested in trying to help people manage their photo collections. They just want you to buy more storage, for 99 cents, you can add another closet on the end of your house and dump all your photos in there. So,
wow. Yeah.
So I started doing it for other people, and then people found me and said, can you teach me how to do this as a business? So really for the last 11 years, I've focused on creating a community of teaching and helping professionals do this for a living. And we have an amazing community of professionals coming from amazing backgrounds who then do this for a living. And I run that organization. That's what I do.
Yeah. So Deb, cool. And she actually, I like this. Deb says she just found a memory card that she didn't know she had around. And it's awesome when you find those hidden gems. It's just awesome. Okay.
Well,
so here's what
it's scary too. Could be scary.
Oh yeah.
Whoa. And then what about home movies? I mean, when I started,
those from my drinking days, yes.
Right? I thought it was just photos, but then people coming with their home movies and then their slides and then their negatives and their kids' artworks and letters from parents. And I realized, wow, this is a huge, this is a big bucket of issues that people have, and they care deeply for all of these items.
Yeah, sure. This is our past.
Yeah.
So okay. So now anybody who's still looking at the poll answer, if you want to get back into the chat and engage in the chat, you have to click in the, if you look at the top of the screen, you click back into the chat tab so that you can re-enter the chat. Sometimes people get stuck in the poll and they don't realize the chat's going on. So what we're going to do now is Kathy did a great job, and she recorded about a 22-minute tutorial with us, which is going to be the basis that we're going to look at for archiving, what we have to know about that we have to do in order to archive our printed photos. We're going to start with that. While it's going on, we will be in chat. As soon as we get through this, we will, on the other side, we will answer your questions right through to the top of the hour. So it's going to be time to learn, time to start imagining, and time to start on a new project. What better time with all of this
That
the
New
social
Yorker
media-
cartoon, like there was a great cartoon that went out where the woman's sitting with like photos and her husband comes in with his toilet paper and he said, "What are you doing?" She's like, "What better time is it than to do this?" And I think every person on the planet related to that cartoon. So
Indeed. Okay, so let's jump into the video. We will see you guys on the other side in just about 20 minutes.
Well, hello there. Well, hello there. I'm excited to bring to you this presentation called Organizing Your Printed Photos. Now, you notice I say printed photos. There's a reason for that. Well, hello there. I'm excited to bring to you this presentation called Organizing Your Printed Photos. Now, you notice I say printed photos. There's a reason for that. Organizing printed photos and digital photos are almost two entirely different topics, and organizing digital photos is a whole nother presentation. We'll touch on that, but I want you to be prepared that we're going to specifically start this conversation with how do you organize all your analog, printed photos, slides, negatives, kids' artwork, all that tactile physical product that you have. So hello, my name is Kathy Nelson. I'm the author of Photo Organizing Made Easy, Going from Overwhelmed to Overjoyed, and I'm also the founder and CEO of an organization called the Photo Managers, because believe it or not, there are hundreds and hundreds of people out there who do this actually as a living. They help people organize their lifetime of photos, both printed and digital. So again, the quick title of this is Save the Memories, Not the Mess. So before we jump in too far, I want you to grab a piece of paper and I want to ask this question. Write down your top 5 reasons of why you take photos. Not just, and also when. So the why and the when. So just think about that for a few minutes. Why do you grab a camera? Why are you here? What is the purpose? What are you trying to do? And when? When are the most likely times that you grab that camera? Besides the fact that every day, because we have a phone in our hands. So as you think about that, I'm going to read this quote. There have been great societies that did not use the wheel, but there have been no societies that did not tell stories. I love this quote because I feel like it's been the heart of the lesson I've been teaching over the past 12 years, is that the reason we take photos, if we looked at your list, I'm going to venture to guess that it's going to say to remember something. On a specific occasion, a new grandbaby's born or your child's born, baby's first steps, graduations from high school or college, 25th wedding anniversaries, a vacation of a lifetime, the trip to the beach, your garden, snow in spring, all these reasons we grab our cameras or our phones today, of course, to take photos because we're telling stories. We are a people of stories. So though we live and take photos chronologically, we actually really think about our photos, and when we look at them, they're bringing back, invoking memories in the past and things that we rarely care deeply about. So if I was going to ask you to grab 2 or 3 photos that kind of summed up a part of your life, I'm curious, I wonder what they would be. As I created this presentation, I decided to grab just these 3 photos. And if you were just looking at these photos in an album or something, you might not really know much about it, other than I can tell you the story of these photos, right? Here's my husband and I many years ago holding for the first time our son Joshua in our arms. We actually had flown to Texas. We got a call that the birth mother that we had been working with had gone into labor and her baby was born. We didn't know if he was going to be a boy or a girl. We met her briefly and then we lost contact with her. So Joshua grew up in our home here in Connecticut, and when he was in his early 20s, DNA testing became available, and I really wanted him to know a little bit more about his genetic background because we knew nothing. So we did 23andMe, and it was an amazing experience. This is a screenshot of what came back. He was the colors of the world had lit up. He had such an amazing background that we didn't know anything about. And then a few years later, we got a message through that organization saying, "Hi, how is this possible? This says that you're my first cousin, which means that your father and mother must be my aunt and uncle, Raul and Gabriella. How could that be?" So suddenly, all the secrets kind of go away when these things happen. Joshua was able to meet his first cousin, Belinda, and she actually flew to Connecticut. And there's a photograph of Joshua now as a young man meeting for the first time somebody who looked like him. So this photo has so much emotion to it that you don't know about unless I'm telling you the story. But we know the story of this photo, of this first meeting he had with somebody that looked like him. So that's a kind of a dramatic story of the stories behind photos, but you all have photos that you look at and they evoke tremendous memory and things that tell a story, right? So that's why this is so important. So think about it, your photos. What are they of? How many do you have? Do you know where they are? Can you find a favorite? So hopefully by the end of this presentation, you're going to be able to answer yes to many of these questions. Now, the reason why this is so difficult is look at this number. There are 1.7 trillion paper photos in the world. So it's a long, kind of arduous process to actually go through and organize your photos. But it's really worth it. Think about it. Why go through this process? I believe it's the best investment you'll ever make. All of our members, people who do this for a living and stuff, say clients never say to them, oh, shoot, I can't believe I invested the time and energy into getting my photos back into my life and in some kind of order. Most people break into tears and are hugging you because they're so excited to finally have access to all those memories that we're talking about. Right now, during this pandemic, think about it. So often, you'll see people that are unable to be with their family members and they're holding photos up against the glass. I mean, it's so sad and bittersweet, but at the same time, it's just that confirmation of that's how we connect with each other, and photos is such an important part of that. So I'm going to give you some tips today. We're going to talk about what I've learned over the years, the 5 steps to take that will really make it, can kind of simplify this process and give you, I always say you eat an elephant one bite at a time. So these 5 steps will kind of give you a framework to start this process. It's going to be setting a goal, the collection stage, sorting, saving, and sharing. So you ready to get started? First of all, you have to have a goal. If you just decide I'm going to organize my photos without a goal, it's going to get pretty easy to kind of put them all back under the bed or somewhere else and stop in the middle of the project. So you want to identify your goal and maybe write it down and post it somewhere. So here's some examples of goals. Sometimes it's really helpful if there's a deadline. Maybe there's a wedding coming up in 6 months or a year. Maybe you're planning on downsizing in 3 or 4 years and moving to a smaller space. Maybe your kids have grown up and you want to pass down photos to the next generation. A graduation is coming. It's helpful sometimes when there's a major vacation, right, to have that kind of goal. But sometimes it can be just, my goal is I just want to take the time of going through that process, and I have some time right now. And think about how you'll feel when the project is done, because that's a big part of it. That's what you want to write down. I'll feel a great sense of satisfaction and relief knowing that my family photos can be passed down and shared to the next generation. I'll be thrilled to give this gift because I know it'll be at Christmas or at Hanukkah. This gift will really light up the person's face that you're giving this gift to. So have a goal and write that down. Because next you want to go through the next, this is probably the part of the project that can take the longest. We call it the hunt and gather stage or collect. It's really important you have to take inventory of what you have. So the first thing you want to do is find all your photos, memorabilia, digital devices, home movies, and gather them into one place. That can be a little overwhelming at first, but if you set a table up in a corner or you designate an area, go on this hunt and gather stage and start to keep an inventory of what you're finding. And I'm going to give you some ideas what you're probably going to find. You probably have photo albums, old magnetic albums, maybe scrapbook albums, albums that you were given at gifts. You probably have boxes of photos up in, maybe under your bed, up in your closet, in the attic, in the basement. Maybe those Tupperware bins. Maybe they're still all in the original envelopes that you got them back from the photo lab, 10 or 15 years ago. And in this process of hunting and gathering, you're going to find other things that are really important, like your family home movies on VCR tapes or little camcorders. You're going to find kids' artwork or maybe letters from the past. There's like a huge memory. There's a lot out there that you probably haven't taken the time. And as you're doing that, keep inventory. And I'll show you in a minute a way to do that, but you also want to get a notebook. So you don't want to have to go do this again. You really only want to do this once. And this idea of grouping like with like can make it easier as you're making your piles. Pile all the albums in one place, all the home movies in one place, or in one pile, all the artwork or things like that, and start making notes of what's there. During this time, resist the urge to reminisce. That's where you're going to get stuck. If you open up a box of photos or an envelope of photos and sit down on the floor, hours are going to pass. So there's going to be time for that, and so resist that urge. So here's a quick idea of a checklist. These are places that you might want to search. Your attic, your closet, bedrooms, basements, on the refrigerator. You're looking for loose photos, photo albums, but you're also looking for memory cards, computer images, old phones, anything that would have those photos on it. So this is kind of give you an idea of what a checklist can be like. And then you want to take this inventory. So here's a quick idea if you have a lot of loose photos. Believe it or not, 1 inch of photos is equal to 100 photos, give or take. So that can help you think about how many loose photos. And actually, I'm wondering, think about it, how many loose photos or how many photos do you think you have? 1,000, 2,000, 5,000. Well, we know the average family actually has 10 to 12,000 printed photos. Again, we're staying focused here on printed. Now, digital, that's, it's an astronomical number, but that's the average number a family has of printed photos. And again, they're going to be, so it's helpful if you say, I have 5 blue albums, 6 red albums, 12 frames, and then also maybe make note, if you're going through this, of what time frames they are, right? How many slide carousels do you have? How many things of negatives? And you want to keep total of that. So this, again, gives you an idea of the scope of the project that you need to get done. And you want to make a phase plan. So again, this is that idea of eating an elephant one bite at a time. If your plan was, when I talked about the goal, was you have a wedding, a child's getting married and a wedding's coming up in say 6 months. So that goal would be maybe you want to gather the photos of your child's childhood, and then also to put together something to present. So that would be phase 1. That's what you're going to be focusing on. So just think about the different phases of how this project could be. And that will kind of make you feel a little bit more like you have some control over what you're trying to accomplish. Step 3. Okay, this is a really important part. Now you want to start to gather your supplies into one place, right? And you want to make sure that you have your supplies gathered. You want to create a timeline. It could be really helpful if you create a timeline ahead of time. List the years, important events that happen, so that as you start sorting through those photos, you want to start thinking about putting them in different piles and things like that. Here's some supplies. Dental floss can really help you get photos out of an album that are stuck. A camera and notebook to take pictures of the photos as you're pulling them out of albums, maybe, so you can document the process, or if there was notes written next to it. You're going to want to use gloves, because when you're handling photos, especially if they have a lot of dust on them or mites or things like that, you're going to find in a face mask, which hopefully you have today more than you would have in the past, because you're likely going to find dusty or moldy photos. And if you start opening up old boxes, your senses are going to kind of get overwhelmed. Sticky notes and index cards are really important to start, again, keeping notes. Storage containers, so when you start the sorting process, we're going to talk about that in a minute. And garbage bags. It's really important to get rid of your duplicate or blurry photos. I mentioned that timeline. So here's a quick example of, you might want to write the family member, their birthday, key milestones, because this will help you when you're trying to decide, is Johnny 5 in this picture or 7, or when was he born, or different things like this. This can be really helpful to have this timeline ahead of time. So I created the ABCs of photo organizing years ago to help my clients visualize this process, and it's become a really popular format that people use, again, to really help visualize what we want to do. So now you have all these photos, you've gathered them all, and you're going to start this sorting process. Now, I don't want you to think this is a weekend event. Most likely this is something that's going to spread out over a few weeks, and that's fine as well. But you want to look at your photos when you start to go through them, and you want to ask yourself, is this album a album-worthy photo or archival-worthy? Is it going to be worth scanning or digitizing? That goes into your A container, your A pile, however you're going to designate these top photos. Your B photos it's really hard, right, sometimes to make that decision, because you think, well, as everybody's eyes open in this picture, whatever, we call those the B photos. They can go back in the box. They support the A photos, but you don't necessarily have to digitize those. And you can put them in an archival box. I like to joke to family members that they can create that box and put on the top of it when somebody opens it. Congratulations, you have my permission to throw these photos away, after I'm dead and gone, because I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Because it's amazing how many families that we come across that I've talked to who inherit boxes of photos of people they don't know who they are. And it really is heartbreaking. That just happened to me. My 90-year-old aunt, who's known I've done this for a living, promised me that I had access to all the family photos, and there were no photos. Well, guess what? I have now inherited boxes of photos, amazing photos of my grandparents at young ages that I know nothing about, because she forgot she had those photos and they were tucked away, far in the back of the basement. And so I'm in the same boat, and it breaks my heart, but I'm going to have to probably eliminate and get rid of all those photos because there's nobody left to ask. So take the stress out of that for your family members by doing this and putting that little note. The C is, yes, you can throw photos away. So what do I mean by that? Blurry photos, doubles, the duplicates, and then landscapes and travel photos. You know, landscapes, the Grand Canyon, I've been to Grand Canyon twice. I took my kids when they were younger. My husband and I went back a few years ago without the stress of bringing our kids. And I took photos of the Grand Canyon as always. But I can't even tell what decade sometimes they are. I want to keep a handful of those photos of my landscape photos, but I don't need to keep all of them, because if I'm staying focused on the S, does it tell a story? Those are the ones that I want to keep, because they're the ones that we care about, that we want to pass down to the next generations. Now, again, this is optional on your part. If you love your garden photos, your landscape photos, you can make different decisions. But I promise that if you can eliminate 80% of your printed photos and narrow it down to your best 20%, that's what's going to help you get your photos back into your life, organized in a way that you can really enjoy them for the future. So last of all, this is really important as well, and usually a revolutionary concept for people when I talk about it. Are there rules? Do you have to organize your photos chronologically? I think that's a lot of what holds people back. Now, if you have organized and kept your photos in envelopes or, with the dates on it, and you were really diligent about doing that over the years, congratulations, that's great. Don't change that format. But if you haven't done that, which is also a big percentage of the population, that makes people feel overwhelmed, it's okay. Because you know what? Like I mentioned earlier, we take photos in chronological order, right? Today is today, tomorrow is the next day, but we live thematically. We remember the photos of our lives based on the stories that they tell. So what do I mean by that? You can create photos about, say you're a family that love to travel. Why not gather all your travel photos over the years and create either a photo album or an organized format in a photo box and scanned of under the heading, we're just a family that love to travel. Does it really matter that you have your pictures of when maybe you went to Cape Cod in 1979 and then you went to the same place again every year? Does it really matter is it really that interesting to view those photos in chronological order? I always think of it more like a narrative. We're telling a story. So it's okay to mix those photos up. Here's some other ideas. You can organize your photos. We're a family that loved to compete. Maybe you were the family that was always at the soccer field or at the football field. It's much more interesting to look at photos of, say, your son, or your daughter, with her holding, her foot on the soccer ball when it's almost as big as her when she's 3 or 4, and then maybe her hitting the header into the, hitting the winning goal in high school. It's much more interesting to see those photos next to each other than it is to see a series of photos of just year by year by year when you don't really get to see those changes. So those are some theme ideas. We're a family that loves one another. We're a family that loves to compete. I'm a person that loves my garden. I love my pets. Think in terms of those themes. It'll make it a lot easier in the process of getting your photos together if you think of it that way, if you did not keep everything in order chronologically. Also, think about those, your kids' artwork. You can definitely scan these and keep this memorabilia, because those are really interesting and wonderful things to also pass down, again, is just like your printed photos. So step 4, saving. This is the whole big process now of scanning the collection, backing them up, and safely storing your physical images. So a lot of people have tended to scan everything first and then go through this process of organizing. So there's 2 different points of view on that. Personally, my recommendation is that you don't necessarily need to, if you don't want to recreate the same mess digitally that you had physically. So I recommend that you organize and go through and sort out those photos, like that 80-20 rule, and scan the ones that you really care about. And you can either scan them yourself. I recommend you invest in a decent scanner instead of using your, the one that maybe came with your printer. But also you can send them out to be scanned. I recommend that you look for somebody locally, so you're not necessarily boxing them up and sending them off. But there's lots of options and pros and cons of both. You definitely want to back up your digital images on an external hard drive and also the cloud. We recommend redundancy in backing up. And you definitely want to save also some of those physical images. You don't want to throw away the actual physical product, the physical itself, because that is your best backup. So the benefits of scanning are it creates a backup. You can then enhance and restore your images. It increases your ability to share and enjoy because now you can put them on flash drives or share them with family members through photo sharing sites. There's so many things you can do once your photos are scanned. And again, this idea that you can digitize them, do it yourself, or you can outsource that. So the 3-2-1 backup strategy, this is a recommended strategy that you should have 3 copies of your digital images on 2 different types of storage media and 1 copy stored off-site. So what that means is you want to have, like I mentioned, an external hard drive or a flash drive stored up in the cloud, and actually the physical copy. That would fit the 3-2-1 backup, so that you're guaranteed that you're not going to lose the images that you care so much about. Now, when you're storing your originals, you want to use archival binders or boxes. You want to make sure you inventory and label them. Avoid your basements and attics because the photos like to live where you do. And last of all, this is the best part, right? You've gone through this whole process. Think about the sharing part. You can celebrate your family legacy. You can make photo books. You can make printed old-fashioned scrapbook albums. You can make photo books. Today, right now, in the process, I recommend to a lot of families that they should be, we are in historical times. Maybe if you're looking for a summer project, ask your child or even yourself to go around and take pictures of maybe the empty streets, people wearing masks, and take the time to document what that feels like, what's happening. Think about if we had more documents of families who went through the Spanish flu or the different influenzas in the past. It's fascinating what's happening right now, and this is an opportunity for you to do that. There's an opportunity to make amazing video slideshows. There's lots of great products out there that allow you to quickly put music and transitions into your photos, and you can share those. Online photo galleries, frame photos, creating gallery photo walls. You can print photos on blankets. You can print them on pillowcases. There's no end to, again, what you can do on water bottles. That's what makes it great gifts. So again, if you've taken the time to find some of those old photos that you really care about and digitize them and then create them into new fun ways, the possibilities again are endless. And this is, again, like I said, why going through that process is really worth the time that you took to do that. Again, you can make photo books for any occasion. A fun one I did for my niece was the ABCs of where I taught her ABC. A is for Aunt Kathy, B is for bath time, 25 reasons I love you, favorite vacation, family recipes. So again, there's no end to the ideas of the photo books that you can do. Wall galleries, like I mentioned, online galleries, slideshow, blankets, water bottles, ornaments. Again, there's no end. So I know, we have a short amount of time for me to kind of give you this quick overview. So you might be feeling like, wow, that was a lot in a short period of time. There is help out there. My book is Photo Organizing Made Easy. You can get that on Amazon. We have an online course with over 16 hours of instructions on really breaking this down and handouts and things that you can use called Photo Organizing Made Easy. We have a great 12 amazing photo album download you can check out. We have a private Facebook group called Advice from the Photo Organizing Pros. It's free to join. It's a no sales commitment, so there's nobody going to be trying to sell you anything. And you can ask questions and on anything that you want, and the pros will answer. There's also a great webinar I've done, how to turn your love of photos into a business. And last of all, you can always hire a photo manager. So if you have questions, you can email me at Kathy@thephotomanagers.com. That's our website, thephotomanagers.com, where you'll find access to all of these things as well. So thank you so much. I'm excited to chat with Steve now and find out, answer your questions and as best I can. And also, hopefully you feel motivated and excited to begin this project. Okay, thanks everybody.
So many good questions. So were you on tenterhooks during the whole thing?
A little bit. I was reading all those. I was like, oh, I want more on digital. I thought, oh, I know we do, but it's just, I think people wish that you could just like wave a magic wand and all this would happen, but it's the reality is it's a process, yeah.
I love the dental floss tip. I'm still in awe. Like, what a great
10 to 15,000
idea.
pictures. It can be a little bit intimidating. Just out of curiosity, what do you have an average amount of time that this project takes?
No, that's always the $1 million question. It goes back to the goal, right? It depends on what it is that you wanted to accomplish, but it's going to take 3 to 4 months, 3 to 5 months.
I'm doing it a couple of evenings a week. It's like it's not fully exactly okay.
Yeah.
So I've got a few pieces of administration to take care of. There's been lots of questions about the replay. People want to go through the content again. The replay will be sent out tomorrow morning. Even if you had a challenging connection during this, the replay always turns out perfect. And if not, we fix it before it goes. So the proper video will be in the replay. The entire thing will be there, along with any links that we were talking, that Kathy was talking about within it, including links to her courses and to her books, so that you can check all of that content out. It'll be in your inbox tomorrow morning, and feel free to share it with others. The replay will be available for 96 hours. April, will you fill in? I've got a delivery at the door. You just hold on a sec.
Yes, sure. Sorry.
Do the Patreon
All right.
pitch. Do the Patreon pitch.
I don't know where to start. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. All right. So the replay will be available for 96 hours for you guys to review. But for our Patreons, which we completely appreciate all of your support, it'll be in our library. It's unlimited. So, and that's one of the greatest things. I mean, you're all wonderful and we love you all, but we really appreciate the support of Patreon, and that helps us to deliver content and have guests like this week after week. I am going to drop a link, just so you know, for Kathy has a 12 amazing photo idea download, which I highly recommend all of you to look at. And then Kathy, there was just a question on your email address. So it looked like there might have been a typo in the slide. So just want to make sure, if you don't mind dropping in your email that you shared.
Yep.
And one of the questions that somebody had was, are you making your slides available, or is there a place that they can look at your slides after?
I can make them available if you want me to send them to you all. I mean, they're just kind of an overview, but happy to.
Yeah, maybe if you want to do a PDF and send them, that'd
I
be
can
great.
send
But
you a PDF, yeah.
Perfect.
How did you do? Did you tell them about
Yeah,
Patreon?
happy to do that.
Did you?
I did a little bit. Yes, I was like that. So I was managing questions too. There was a lot of questions from finishing up stuff.
Well,
so yes, I'm going to drop a
And I wanna
Patreon link
welcome
too
and
as well.
Thank
for
Eugene
everyone to
and Karen, who are our newest patrons. They've just joined us on Patreon as of today. So thank you
Very
so much.
much.
It
Thank
is
you.
awesome that you're supporting us. So the replay will be available for 96 hours. And
did
then
go
after
over
that,
that
it'll
stuff.
be archived for all of our patrons. So that's it. That's the big deal. So thank you to all of the patrons for making this possible. And this is just one example of the type of tutorials we're doing. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that we're going to have Kathy back. I'm thinking twice, because I want to talk. We're going to have to do digital photos. I think everybody.
Can I
Sorry.
hire you to do mine? That's a
I can,
bigger.
not me, but I can. There's
I
And then
said,
we're
can
going
I
to talk
hire
to her
you
about
to do mine?
the job aspect, the fact, because it really dovetails with our gray matter
Yeah.
stuff, with what we're talking to baby boomers, because Kathy teaches people how to be a photo archivist so they can go out and help people do this. And what a great piece, what a great
Very
kind
cool.
of not a retirement, but a second career, third career, going out and helping people save their stories and tell their stories. And
It's a great business. Yeah, it's wonderful. Mhm.
and it is
like
growing
crazy.
like crazy, because all of us baby boomers, we got all these photos, and we got Farley, seriously, dude, he's at least he's not doing anything rude. I won't tell you what happened on our walk today, but it wasn't pretty. So let's get into questions. We've got 22 minutes before the top of the hour. We want to get as many answers in as we can. So I guess if you just go through and manage the chat, I'll pull the questions. Okay, April? Okay, so I've got to start with the most obvious question. You recommended this. People wonder, how do they digitize the photos? Somebody posted that Costco in their local neighborhood does it. So do you have a kind of a hierarchical recommendation? Should they invest, like how much should you spend on a scanner if you're going to do it yourself? And is it, I still wonder whether a scanner is the best option, because you still have to send out your slides typically, because the scanner is not going to do a great job on slides. So give me your best recommendations.
Yeah. Right. So first recommendation is, if you're going to send it out, is we recommend finding somebody local who does it locally, that you can build a relationship with. I mean, I don't want to put down Costco, but you get what you pay for. I think pretty sure Costco ships theirs out overseas. I'm pretty sure they still do. So, but people have used them. the key is you want to, if you're going to outsource to an organization, you want to put the photos in the order or the slides that you want them back, because if you just send them a messy box, you're just going to get that back and not having them properly named and properly date. You can put a little like card in there and, even put the dates. The more prep work you do ahead of time, the better results you're going to get back. So that's just, if you're going to outsource it, I recommend, you can find lots of photo managers do it for a living. You can Google, go to our website and say, find a pro near you, or you can even, they do drop off and pick up. So they're going to really spend a lot of time. They're going to
part of the training that you do is they kit out with gear so they can do a good job.
Yeah. And the newest thing that many of our members are investing in, a lot of people are, is camera scanning, because there used to be some great scanners on the market that are no longer available. Kodak Alaris discontinued it. And a lot of people are finding if you have a 35 millimeter camera, you can actually set up a camera and actually scan. You're actually photographing your, and it's like become this big movement that many people are doing. But from a scanner's perspective,
that you're using a high quality, and that won't work with your phone very well, will it?
Yeah. No, it doesn't work with your phone. The difference is, we've done lots of testing, and there's no comparison of using your phone than using a good camera with a lens. And so that's an example of like the training we do. Our members are becoming early adapters to a lot of this, and some of our members have really run with this. Now they're teaching all the other members how to do it. So it becomes just an interesting phenomenon for me to be observing. I'm not personally, I haven't done camera scanning myself, but I would be doing that if the way I'm watching the way it's growing. But from buying a regular scanner yourself, the Epson, both Epson and Canon make good quality flatbed scanners. It's tedious. You don't want to use the scanner that you have on your, I always say don't use your printing scanner that you just, and you want to look at how many photos that you have and how much time you really want to take in going through that process. So it's a time issue. And then a good scanning company will also clean up your photos. They'll color correct them. And then they should be adding the metadata where they're adding the information about dates and things, so that you don't want all your photos back just named, JPEG.
It's going to take
00113
more than a minute per photo to scan it, isn't it?
Some of the bigger scanners go a little bit faster, but yeah.
If you're doing it yourself, you can budget your time. So
if you're going to be,
and it's tedious. So maybe you can do 50, and then you're going to be, I need a break. So if you've got 500, that's going to be 10 hours. Now you might do that over several days, but that's the cost of the scanner. And then I'm big on sending it out, because then you don't have to worry about media types too, because then you're going to find your photos. But now, as Leonard says, what about 35 mil negatives? You're still going to have to find a service for that. What about video?
Yeah.
What about tapes? And in handling of old 8 millimeter tapes or Super 8 film, that becomes that media is very volatile, and sometimes you'll just have one pass at capturing it. Correct?
And you want to be careful, and you want to be careful that some of these companies, that if you send out your home movies and they're going to put it up online, they're going to compress the video quality and things like that. So there's a lot of questions that you need to know to ask. Again, that's where this idea of pricing becomes important. What's the purpose that you want? If you want this for long term, you want to be able to edit these videos at some point, then you're going to want to work with a quality company that's going to digitize it correctly and return it to you in the right kind of. You don't want a DVD anymore. If you find a company who's going to return it to you on a DVD, run as fast as you can in the opposite direction, because there's no more. They're obsolete, right? Who's got a DVD player anymore?
Okay.
So, yeah. And we have lots of partners. We can recommend partners if you go on we do work with a lot of companies that we've vetted over the years that care deeply. And so there's a lot of great companies out there, and there's others that aren't.
So let's talk quickly about the backup systems that you're going to be working on. Do you recommend applications on your computer for managing the photos and organizing them, or are you happy using Apple Photos or Google Photo once you've got the photos in to start doing the structural organization and setting up your albums, etc.?
That's a great question. That's why it's a longer conversation. Apple, if you're in the Apple ecosystem and you take the time to learn how to really manage your photos in the Apple ecosystem, then you can stay within the Apple eco. They don't want you to break up with them. They're kind of got you locked in there. And there's lots of, take the time to do some of their online tutorials about creating albums, and you can search for your photos. If you want to get out of the Apple ecosystem and move into a different one, Google minds your photos. We know that you kind of give up your rights to your photos with Google Photos, so we don't really recommend Google Photos. But it's certainly, people, it's hard to, there's so many options out there that a big key is to find one and stay with it and be consistent in what you're doing with it. That's the other, because most of we'll find people I've got photos in Dropbox. I've got them in Google Photos. I tried Mylio. I tried, XYZ company, and they went out of business. I had Picasa, and I have hard drives, and so that gets what's overwhelming. And have you ever talked about dedupe software? There's some great programs out there. Will find all your duplicates, and you can run.
Yeah,
we can talk about that again
benefit.
when we do the digital. I can make some great recommendations.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, they go through and finds all your, and it won't delete them unless you want to put them in a folder. Some are free, some are, but that's a great.
If you're very serious about it
worrisome.
and you're going to take it on as a real responsibility, is it worth looking at upgrading to a product like Adobe's Lightroom, which is designed for commercial photographers to organize their photos, but has some really great organizational features to it?
It does, yeah. Adobe has their consumer. I think it's Adobe CC. I think they messed up when they named them, and I don't remember. But yeah, we do actually. We are big Adobe. Many of our members love Adobe and have learned it. There's a little bit of a learning curve. You can use their consumer product, but then it's also a non-proprietary software, so it doesn't. They don't own all your photos. You're going to be able to make changes in those and then move them wherever you want. So yes, Adobe is a well recommended. They're going to be here. They're in for the long haul. They're not going anywhere. It is subscription model at this point, but it's not that expensive. When you think about what you spend on your photos, and if you lost them, then it's
pretty much saying he's got video. Now, not talking about film, but talking about videotapes.
I know, we want to archive it. That's where storage becomes a whole different issue, right? Because if they compress the video, then you can add a lot of it. But if it's not compressed, then I always say video is the next frontier. In some ways, I call this the photo managers. We should be the photo video, whatever, because that's really where we're heading. I take a lot more video myself. So I use Vimeo. I mean, there's different programs right now that you can use, but in time, you're going to want to be able to edit that, because who wants all those little streaming videos? So, and again, that has to be done in real time. Right now, there's no automated system for that yet. And somebody has to look at it and make those decisions. But save them because it's important.
And it's hard for you to go through, because a lot of us don't have VCRs yet to prove it. So you got to get everything digitized and then look at it afterwards. That can be a challenge. Do
you want to get down to MP4? Yeah, you want to get it in a movie file, and then it's much easier. I think there will be faster ways of doing that in time. I think that's coming. It's just not here yet.
Daniel's asking, the checklist that you had, those forms, they're fantastic. Now, are they part of your course? Are they available?
They're part of my, they're all is part of the course. So I have Photo Organizing Made Easy at the Photo Organizing Academy. Actually, it's the bundle you can, and I'm pretty sure I have a discount, but you get, it's both printed Photo Organizing Made Easy and digital. So we do address all digital, and all those forms are downloadable, and
good stuff.
they come with it.
You mentioned like a measurement, how many photos per inch? How many was it? 100 photos.
100,
okay,
give or take, but about 100. It's a good way to kind of get a
quick
idea of what you have.
Yes.
People always underestimate.
Asking how many fishing pictures I have? A lot. Just a lot. And a lot of the fishing pictures can be kind of like your landscape pictures, because often we don't put ourselves in the picture. We just take a picture of the trout, and they start to have pretty much of a muchness after a period.
Yeah, you've seen one trout, you've seen them all, but yeah. But what's important, Steve, if you're a big fisherman, is what is it about fishing that you love? That's what you need to tell that story with the photos. What happens when you go out into, what does it feel like when you get the tug on the line? All of that is what really is so.
These are the things, capturing the essence of it.
And telling.
Capturing the essence of it.
Yeah. That's what photos are about. I mean, otherwise you're not going to do this project. If you don't stay connected to the reason why, then this is a really easy project to put on the shelf and decide, I'm not going to do it today. Then the fire comes, the hurricanes. We've worked with so many clients that have lost their photos, and they're devastated. And so that's why we try to help you think through that. What's the reason why you're doing this?
And a lot of us I've never gone through and completely organized everything, but I have had the experience of trying to tell that story. When my dad passed, like so many of us, I put together a slideshow for his memorial. And it was a hard thing to do, but I wished I was more organized. But just that journey, and I would be lost in it for hours and hours, looking at the old photos, trying to remember somebody's name, trying to just the sleuthing that went on. And it was a very cathartic time as well. I mean, I think one of the things that we talk about, the technical details of it, But this has got to be a fairly emotional journey for a lot of people as they do this, because if you're not looking at just clinically backing things up as a technical exercise, but you're looking at your perspective, which is how are we going to tell the stories, how are we going to relate these photos to life, that becomes it becomes a lot more personal in nature.
In fact, we were called the Association of Personal Photo Organizers for 12 years until I just updated the name because I felt like photo management was a better description of the future. But I specifically picked personal over professional at the time is because I knew when I work with clients, it was really personal work. You enter in their lives. Like, it's amazing. And it's not hard to organize somebody else's photos, because once I got to know you, Steve, like already I know a little bit about you and fishing, right? Mm-hmm. You ask the right questions. I start going through the photos. I could very easily put together the kind of photo collection that you wanted because I understand who you are, because I'm connected to the stories.
There you go. And actually there was a couple of comments in the comments saying that what you're doing doesn't relate to people who are professional photographers because they need all those pictures of a lamp, which is exactly that's what this is for. This is about the personal side. Let's talk technology again. What format do you recommend your images to be saved in? TIFF?
Was that with whether it's JPEGs or TIFFs? Yeah. JPEGs are fine. It's going to be, that's not going anywhere. It's up to you. But saving them in TIFFs also means that they're not going to be, they're at their highest quality, and so it takes longer when you're scanning it. It requires more, it's a bigger file. But so again, it depends on, that goes back to the question of what is it they want to do. And
storage shouldn't be that big an issue right now. I mean, you can buy a solid, it's an SSD, 1 terabyte or 10, massive drive for $100. It's ridiculous. Storage should not be crazy. The issue.
Yeah.
Patty asked a good question. Do you have a nomenclature for labeling individual photos? Do you have some best systems? Because that's, you want to be consistent.
And believe it or not, I'm on a board with Family Search and other companies trying to standardize metadata for the consumer, because there's been no standardization really in what proper naming conventions are. People use all sorts of things, but date, so year, month, date, and then we're using an underscore, and then you want to be consistent again. So if it's your family name, Jack Gelati, that whenever you're naming a photo Jack Gelati, that you're consistent. It's not Gelati Jack, you don't go over. But what's great about that is you can, once they're named correctly, then you can find them in the future. I mean, by adding those keywords, that's what's critical. And then leaving behind a list of what those keywords are so people can find out. We know we can call it into our phone, show me every picture of Jack, and every picture of Jack's going to pop up for me. But you still have to take the time. Now, that's where I know, Steve, you brought me interesting, with facial recognition, all that's coming. But what facial recognition isn't going to tell us is, was that trout that you caught the biggest trout you ever caught?
Those ones I keep.
Or
those
whatever
I
they'll call trout.
Yes. So I got you.
Yeah, so.
People are kind of getting into the weeds a little bit, but do you like Shutterfly?
The issue with Shutterfly is you can't download. We see more of our members trying to get clients' photos out of Shutterfly. They compress your photos. It takes forever to download them. So they kind of technically own if that's where you're storing your photos. It's great, to make photo books. There's lots of choices out there, but I would not use them as your main place where you keep all of your photos, because you can't break up with them. And they will have already compressed your photos, which is very disappointing.
Things we should be asking. Now, I'm not going to, if you do know somebody in Toronto, that's great. But Cora's asking any suggestions of scanning pros. But where can you point people towards a resource where they can find scanning pros in their area?
Yeah. Go to our website, thephotomanagers.com, hire a pro, and then put in Toronto. We have members all over. We have lots of members in Toronto. We have lots of Canadians, and we definitely have great members there. And so just when you go through the menu, you can read their bio, you can go to their website, you can,
So Alice is asking about using tags to identify digital photos. And that's going to depend, I guess, on the app and the operating system that you're working in. But tagging would be a really good way to organize things as far as that's concerned.
Correct. And you want to be consistent in again, the consistency it's less, like the tags are really important. It's important to tag, but it's also important to be consistent in what you're I made a mistake with that myself, so I know this from experience. I didn't know that so I named things different, whatever I felt like in that moment, and so I have to almost go back and redo some of that because they're not showing up the
tagging
way
is,
that I want them.
you know, whenever you start in any organizational system, I can tell this from teaching Evernote as many times as I've taught it, that people can get lost in the tags, and simpler is better. And start with less, and you can always add more. But it's a learning process. Pat apparently has asked twice before, but I don't know. Third time asking, Picture Keeper. I don't know what that is.
Oh, that's the little, they've been around a long time. You just stick it in your computer, it finds all your photos and stuff. I've heard mixed reviews on that over the years.
It's one of those ones that goes through all your folders and it brings all your photos. Okay. Yeah. What about tintypes?
Oh, you can scan the tintypes.
First of all, explain to those of us that are under the age of 40 or 50, I guess, what a tintype is.
I forget what year. I'd have to look in my book because I have that listed what year they were. But those were some of the first ways that they developed photos on tintypes. The old, so your photos from the 1920s and earlier are going to be on that heavy stock cardboard. Sometimes they're on tintypes. They weren't using photo paper in those days. So those are wonderful things to have. You want to keep those originals if you have them. And, people are real serious. They're usually in sepia tones, black and white. You can date them. There's like little sleuth ways of looking at their clothing, their hair to figure out the year, maybe, if you don't know.
If Evernote, Tom's asking if Evernote would be useful for organizing with tags. Have you ever had anybody bring their stuff into Evernote? No. Yeah, that would be interesting.
Would you? I don't think it's not really a photo. I mean, that's where you put your recipe, right? Like blogs or articles and stuff.
Let me I've got to scroll back through. I've reached the end of the photos. A couple of people are asking about discounts, but this wasn't set up to be a sales webinar, so I haven't asked Kathy to incorporate any discounts, but I'm sure that I can tell her regular rates seem to be very good. So I encourage you to support it at that level.
And if you sign up through our email sequence, right, we have, there's some $25 off our course and different things that'll come your way. We're not big on discounting a lot because the value of what we have, but I did put some things together for you all.
Good stuff. And I know that we're not big on discounting here either. It's something that we very seldom do here on Autodeck. Sorry, everybody. But these courses are priced, I can tell you, they're priced very aggressively as far as there's good value in them. And you can build a career out of it. That's awesome. Yeah. April, did I miss any questions? I've just scrolled through once. Is there anything that you noticed that I missed?
No, I think you talked about the best type of scanner, photo scanner. You talked about that earlier. That came up a few times.
But you basically say the Epson and Canon line are the kind of the top of the, for the consumers are top of the, and that goes back to the days that I did my TV show. We used to do lots of stories on scanners, and it was always the same ones always came out of kind of the top of the pile as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I think we covered them all. Everyone was thrilled that you were here, Kathy. So thanks so much for your time today.
I will take one personal moment and say, Cora is asking about the Canadian funds and Patreon. We don't, unfortunately. Patreon does not have the ability for us to deal with different currencies. That's just the way it is. Less than 7% of the audience on Patreon is Canadian, so that's it's in U.S. funds, and that's the only way they set up. If they would set it up for Canadian funds, we'd be happy to set it up that way, but we don't have any control over that as far as how our relationship with Patreon goes. So I apologize for that, but we do thank you guys all for your support so much through Patreon as well. And I think we have, yes, we do. Penelope has also signed up as a patron just now. So thank you so much. Penelope, welcome aboard.
Penelope.
Looking forward to it. So let's drop the links one more time to Kathy's site, April. And Kathy, thank you so much. This has been
it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great.
We will when we'll do digital photos next. And digital photos, I think people might even have more questions about digital photos.
They will, and I'm going to have to prep up. I might bring a few assistants along with. It's funny because digital photos, you've got, your Mac supposed to be an expert in, Apple. Our members actually are dividing themselves up. Some are more. You can't be an expert in everything about digital because that's what you have an Android phone, you have an iPhone, you have people that really use Amazon Photo, Google Photo. People are asking, I noticed Mylio, Forever,
Still people in Picasa.
Adobe.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a lot. Yeah. So we can do the best. There's best practices without question, and that's what we focus on is best practices, and then finding something that works for you and being consistent. But we have a lot we could cover on digital photos for sure.
I'm going to gift my mother your course, because if you saw how she takes pictures of all these photos and posts them on Facebook, and I mean, I would love for her to. I'm going to gift her your course. So
that's a great. I mean,
Okay,
what a great thing, and it's a gift for you too, because it's gonna come. The photos are gonna come to you far more organized.
it is, and she loves photos. She always brings them to family gatherings, and she, all our reunions and stuff. But they're just all over the place.
This
so
is the first time that my eyes have been open to thinking about looking at photos as they relate as far as stories and not chronologically. I don't know why I was locked up in those rail tracks.
Right.
I know it's always like this aha moment for people, but think about also like right now in the pandemic, these poor people in nursing homes. What do people bring the photos and they hold them up to the windows? You think about how, or as this man I'm reading here is my wife of 30 years and mother of 4 children, has just been diagnosed with a grade 4 brain tumor. Right? She's in good with limited life expectancy, and it's heartbreaking, but this is the moment. And so one answer to your question too is there's really good apps that you can gather her. You can, Google. I should know one off the top of my head, but I can't right now. But there's great apps to capture their stories where you can, capture her stories and have it transcribed.
You allow them
taking the time
on
to
a
do those photos
smartphone.
now
You allow them to see the picture and you capture. They reminisce, and it captures an audio file that attaches to the photo. What a beautiful thing to do.
That's awesome.
What a beautiful thing to do.
That's wonderful.
And ask her those questions about those photos and get those stories. Like I showed that picture early on of Joshua with Belinda. It'll just look like him with a girlfriend or a sister, right? But that's again that key moment there. Like, who would have known that was the first time he ever saw somebody who looked like him? That's a story his kids will want to know someday.
Right.
Thank you so much.
That's awesome. Thank you.
For being with us today. It has been awesome.
Okay,
we will start planning the next one right away. Next week, folks, on Webinar Wednesday, I have been doing a ton of research on community teaching, on dance teachers, voice teachers, fitness instructors, and how they're reinventing themselves as a result of the pandemic. And I thought it was going to be a story on technology, on how they use technology and what tools they're using. But I did about 8 or 10 interviews this last couple of weeks with different instructors that have pivoted their business. And my eyes have been open to a whole bunch of different ways of delivering online training that used to happen live. We're going to be looking at that next week on Webinar Wednesday. So it's going to be something a little bit different. It's going to be based on a bunch of interviews that we've done, but for community teachers, for the people who used to be teaching stuff physically in class, and how they have pivoted and reinvented themselves successfully online. So it should be a really interesting Webinar Wednesday next week, something a little bit out of the ordinary for us. Kathy, thank you so much. April, thank you. For everybody, that's all of our patrons. We appreciate you so much. Everybody else for all the questions and the feedback. We thank you. We will see you next time right here for more Webinar Wednesday. Till then, have fun storming a castle.
Bye, guys. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Kathy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.